Hey everybody. Okay, so we're gonna put our pajama pants together. So by now you should have cut them out. You should have them serged. And now we're gonna sew them together. So we're gonna start with one leg that is from the back, one leg that is from the front. And we're gonna put them together on top of each other. So this is my back. You can always tell a back from a front because the crotch is longer in the back than in the front. And I will show you. So if I put my pants together, so I'm matching up the crotch, which is the curved part, you can see this piece here has a much larger curve than this piece here. This is the back. Back has always got a bigger curve than the front. All right, so now that we've got these pieces, we're gonna pin down the leg. So we're gonna start up here at the crotch. And I'm going to put a pin there. Then I'm going to go down to the bottom. I'm going to put my hems together at the inseam and put a pin there. So I'm following the directions in your pattern. These are pants D, and I'm on number 1. Stitch front piece number 6 and back piece number 7 together at the inner leg. So that's what we're doing. We're prepping this to put it together. So I've got the bottom pinned, I've got the top pinned up here. The two ends are pinned, and now I'm going to start pinning in between. There should be a notch on the inseam, maybe not. No notches, I guess. Okay. Either that or I forgot to mark them, but usually I don't forget those things. Okay, so I'm going to keep pinning in between. Always pin the top and the bottom first, and then pin in between. That way you don't start at one end and end up at the other end and have like an extra 1.5 inches of fabric and say, what is that? That's not good. Sometimes you can stretch your fabric inadvertently, especially the inseam has got a little curve to it. Anything that might have a little curve is going to stretch. So you want to be careful. Be careful. This fabric is extra sticky, like Velcro. Must be extra fuzzy. We're just gonna keep fighting with it. Just wants to stick to itself. Okay, so got leg pinned at the inseam. I'm gonna put a couple more in. I've got some pretty big gaps. Let's put a couple more in there. Fill in those gaps. Sometimes the sewing machine presser foot will push the fabric, and then you get up to your pin and you're like, wow, I got a sewing machine just pushed a pile of fabric up there. But if we put pins in, usually it doesn't let that happen. Okay, so we're only looking at this seam from here to here. That should match. The crotch area will not match. And it shouldn't, because we're not going to worry about that right now. So right now we're going to sew this 5/8 of an inch. And then we're going to press it. Always press your seams as soon as you sew them. Okay, so also when you sew, you want to sew from the bottom and go towards the top. So let's do that. 5/8 of an inch, unless we're told otherwise. And as I'm going, I'm also checking to make sure my seam allowances are the same length. It's very important, and I will be looking at that when I grade you, that your seam allowances are consistent and they're even. Consistent meaning it's 5/8 inch from top to bottom. Okay, so there's one. And then good, it's all good. I'm gonna press this. Okay, so that's what I have now pressed open. Now I'm going to go ahead and pin the other leg. Always pin right sides together unless you're told otherwise. And we're doing the other inseam. So I'm going to start at the crotch and pin. And then go down to the bottom of the leg and pin. Make sure they're even. And again, start pinning in between. Oh, this has a notch. I must have missed it on the other leg. I found the notch. There, you can see that right there. That's my notch. I guess I missed it on the other leg. Pin the notch. Sometimes they get a little hidden in the serging. Okay, so pinned here, and now we're going to stitch it up. Same thing I did on the other one, starting at the bottom, sewing to the top. Always back stitching, the beginning and the end. Right. So now taking the pins out, and I'm going to press that open. Beautiful. So that's what we have now. Next thing we're going to do, we need to attach our pockets. Right, so you're going to start with your pants like this, face up. One pocket goes face down. You find your dots, and they just stick like Velcro. Find your dot, match it with the dot on your pants. Pin it in place. I'm going to double check to make sure I got my dots in the right place. Oh yeah, beautiful. Pin that. Come down. And pin at the bottom. Beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to pin it a little bit more. I just pinned it where my dots were. You can see my dots there. So that's where I pin the pockets. But I'm going to put a couple more pins in there. That's just for placement. Put one in the middle there. Okay, so there's that side pocket. I'm going to put the other side over here. Okay, missed a thread here. I'll cut my serging thread out there. Okay, so here we are on this side. And again, I'm way off. I'm going to move this down. Dots down here. So if you guys did not see, I think I told you on the other video, but if I did not see or mention it, I'm sure I did. Measure 3 inches down. This is for pocket placement. 3 inches down from the top of the waistband. And that's where the top of the pocket should go. So, for instance, my ruler, put the ruler down. So the top of the ruler's at 3 inches. The top of my pocket, so you guys can see, top of my pocket should start right at 3 inches. So that's the placement for the pockets. Okay, so those guys, going to pin them in place. I'll put one up here at the top. Always make sure you pin your corners because those guys can shift pretty easily. This one. Okay, so I'm ready to sew these. These seams are not going to be 5/8. This seam is going to be a 1/4 inch. 1/4 inch, you remember we used when we sewed our face masks. So remember where that placement was on your sewing machine? So at a 1/4 inch. 1/4 inch also is the width of your serging. So you could sew right along the outside edge of your serge, and that will also put you at a 1/4 inch. So I'm going to back stitch. I'm sewing the pocket. Let me bring you down here a little closer to me. It's kind of hard to see. There's so much light reflection. Well, we do the best we can. Okay, so I'm just sewing along that pocket edge. At a 1/4 inch. Get down to the bottom and back stitch. Okay, pocket number 1. Good. I'm going to do the other side. And since we added these pockets, your pattern didn't come with pockets. This step is not on your pattern, obviously. So we're winging it here. So again, at 1/4 inch, I'm gonna stitch down this side of the pocket. Great. All right. Okay, so this one, so here's what I have so far. If you look at this, that's what I have so far. See if you can see this end and that end. So that's what we have so far. Now I'm going to do the other side. See? Let's do this side. Pockets. So this one is going over here. This pocket is going over here. Again, remember it's 3 inches down from the top. Or if we marked your dots, of course, match your dots. But if we didn't do it, it's 3 inches. That was way off. I think I told you guys 3. I'm not really sure. Maybe I didn't tell you guys 3. Whatever I told you to do. And if I didn't tell you to do anything, do 3 inches. Still a little bit too low. I'm going to adjust it a little bit. Just matching my dots. Perfect. Good. Okay, so I got the top dots matched. Gonna go ahead, pin the bottom dot. Yay, perfect. Okay, so I did that, and I'm going to pin in between. Pin the corner up here on the top, because that guy's shifty. And put a pin in between here. Good. Okay, so there's that side. This side. This fabric is so sticky. It's crazy. Okay. Super fuzzy. That's what it is. Super, super fuzzy. Okay. It's like sewing on velvet, so fuzzy. Okay. All right, so here we are. These guys are ready to get sewn down now. Yes. Quarter inch. Or right along your serging. last one. Unthreaded myself, hang on. All right. Okay, pockets are now attached. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to sew the crotch seam. Okay, so here we are. We've got the saddle, I call it the saddle, the giant U. So we're going to start pinning at one side of the U and then pin the other side of the U. And then we're going to pin through the center where we already seamed. If you remember when we did matching seams, we're going to stick a pin through the top right down the seam line, and then hopefully when we flip it over, we pinned through the other side. So I pinned through the seam on this side, and then if I flip it over, you can see the pin through the seam on the other side. That way I know my seam is going to match up perfectly when I sew it. Okay, so now I've only got 3 pins in. I want to put a few more in there because this fabric is really sticky. Okay, so I'm going to keep pinning through the crotch here. Okay. Now this side. So that's what we have now. Pockets. So pockets are on the out seams, pockets on the out seam, and we have the U of the crotch, what we're going to sew right now. Okay, so in it goes. Starting at one end, doesn't matter which end you do. And this is sewn at 5/8. So your stitching length on your pajamas should be somewhere between 2.5 and 3. Make sure, of course, when you start sewing, I should have said this at the beginning, but make sure that your width is at 0. Your needle is centered, not to the left or the right, and you're on a straight stitch, not a zigzag. Okay, so when I get to my seam, you want to make sure when you sew over your seam that these seam allowances stay flat, top and the bottom. So kind of take a peek under there and make sure it's not folding. Feels good to me. Sometimes the feed dogs will push your seam allowance and then it will fold the opposite direction and not lay flat. We don't want that. And also sometimes your presser foot will push your seam allowance and fold it, and you don't want that. You want it laying flat. And if you got it, keep on going. So all the while I'm going through this crotch seam, I'm also making sure my seam allowances are together. Accuracy, of course, is most important. See this, I gotta fix a little bit here because my seam allowance is not. This fabric is like Velcro. Crazy sticky. Okay. So there were notches on these guys too. They obviously should match. Looks good to me. 2 notches there I just sewed by. Okay, so that's the crotch seam. Now, we're gonna stitch that seam one more time, right on top of the seam we just did, because this is a high stress area, just because you're sitting down and doing whatever. It needs a little extra. So we're just gonna stitch over it, same exact place, the whole seam, just to make it stronger. Whoops, didn't mean to cut my thread there. Okay. My sewing machine has a thread cutter on the presser foot, and it's where the heel goes, so if I let my heel rest, it'll cut the threads. So I gotta be careful. Okay, we are secure now. That. There we go. There we go, people. Okay, so I'm gonna press this seam open. Give me a minute here. In your directions, they tell you to trim away. I don't suggest you trim away because I think it gives you, well, first of all, you just serged it. And trimming away your serging is not what we want to do. So we're not going to trim because then it's going to fray. So we just double stitched it and on top of itself, which should be sufficient. Okay, so here we are. I have pressed the crotch seam open. Move you back a little bit. crotch seam is pressed open. Okay, so now we're going to sew the front. This is my front. Oh, let's press the pockets. We need to press the pockets. So we're gonna press the pockets all open like this. And the seam allowance where we sewed the pocket is going to be going out towards the pockets, okay? So all the seam allowance, both pieces, we're not pressing them open, we're pressing them out to the sides. So I'm gonna do that real quick. All right, super. Okay, so I've pressed my pockets all out. See if you can see that. So the seam allowances are all going out towards the pocket. So it's going towards the pocket that way. And now I'm going to put one waistline on top of the other waistline. Fronts and backs together. Because my back is on the bottom, I've got the front on top. And we're gonna start pinning. Now we're pinning the out seam, which should be the seam with the pocket. So I'm gonna start at the top where the waistline is. I'm gonna pin that corner. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm coming down to where the corner is, where the side seam meets the pocket. And I'm going to pin that where the side seam meets the pocket. Good. Now I'm going to pin across the top of the pocket. They should meet evenly if you measured correctly. So I'm going to pin that corner and I'm going to pin this right here straight across. Okay, so that's that. And now I'm going to pin around the pocket, so the outside edge of the pocket I'm going to pin. So sticky. I'm going to pin this other corner, the bottom corner I'm going to pin right now, and then I'll finish pinning my pocket. Get that lined up, which I do. Back to pocket. Okay. It could be while you were serging that you may have serged off more pocket than you wished because it's not easy serging around a circle. It happens. There's no shame there, and you know what? It's all cool. So, you know, readjust the best you can to make it fit if it doesn't fit exactly, and don't worry about it. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be gorgeous. So there we go. Okay, so that's what I have now. Now that I've got this side pocket all the way around, now I'm ready to go down the whole outside of the leg with my pins. So let's do that. I've already got this pinned up here at this corner by the pocket. I'm gonna go ahead all the way to the bottom and pin the bottom of that pant leg. And then start pinning in between. Kind of fun making fuzzy pajamas on a snowy day. I'm looking forward to it. They'd be nice and cozy, for sure. Boy, I tell you, it's a little painful trying to do things on a kitchen table because it's so low. Puts a lot of stress on your back. But we do what we have to do. But I'm not a fan. Makes me appreciate my workplace, for sure. Okay. So there's that. So I've got it pinned from top to bottom now. This is my outseam all the way up and around the pocket. So let's sew it together. All right. Starting at the bottom again. Oh, I know what I wanted to tell you guys. So you have dots here. Dots here. Let's see if I can find the dots. Right here. Yes. Dot and a dot. So when we sew, we start at the bottom of the pant leg, sewing up, we stop at the dot. At the dot, we're going to do a back stitch, and then we're going to cut across this way to the other dot and do a back stitch. And then we're going to start sewing around the perimeter of the pocket. What we need to do up here, we need to mark up here a dot, or we could do a series of 2 dots. This pattern came off the pocket pattern came off a different pattern, as you probably remember. And they did a little different construction. So we're just going to mark it right now. So what I want you to do with your ruler, there we go. I want you to measure down from the top of the pocket 5/8 of an inch. And you're going to put that right at the edge of your serging line. I'll do this and then I'll show you where I put it. Okay. So let's see if you can see it. So I put my ruler on, so it's at 5/8 of an inch. And then I put a mark right here. Here's my seam allowance with the serging line. I put a dot right there at the edge of the serging line. It's on the pocket. It should be the same place that the dot is at the bottom of the pocket, okay? Now I'm going to put a dot up here on the pant leg at 5/8 of an inch. And this is going to be where I do my pivot. So let me go through that with you. Okay, so I did 5/8 of an inch here, a little dot, which is in the same line, if you follow me down to where the dot was here, okay? I measured from the top of the pocket here to 5/8 here, and it's right on the seam allowance. Then I came in here onto the pant leg, and I put a dot at 5/8 of an inch, and that too is from the top of the pocket line. It's on the pant leg, not the pocket, but it's in line with the pocket line. 5/8 of an inch down and 5/8 of an inch in. It should be in line with the other pockets, the other dots that you had for your pockets here and here. This is also on the same line. It's just up a little higher. It's 5/8 inch from the top of the pocket. I hope that's clear. If not, you guys will have to text me and we'll try to work through it. Okay? All right, so that's my pivot point. So when I'm sewing around my pocket and I get up to the top of my pocket, I sew across the top of the pocket, across the first dot, across to the second dot, and then I'm going to leave my needle in the fabric, left my presser foot, turn my fabric, and then I'm going to sew right up to the top of the waistline. Okay, let's do it. Maybe a little closer. Okay, starting at the bottom of the pant leg. Five-eighths inch seam allowance again. All right, so I'm nearing the dot, the first dot. I don't know, you can't see, this light is so bright. Well, I don't know if you can see it or not. But here's the dot right here. That's where I'm going to stitch up to. And leave my needle right in the middle of the dot, right? With my presser foot. Rotate Okay, so now I'm gonna stitch across over to my pocket. I want you to be sure to check to make sure your seam allowance, this seam allowance is pushed all the way this way. So check underneath, make sure everything should be coming this way towards the pocket. Okay, so I'm gonna, wait, did I back stitch? I don't think I did. All right, back up. Turn my fabric back. Let's back stitch that. This is also a high stress area. The bottom of your pocket, super high stress, because that's where your hands jam in. That's where you're holding all kinds of stuff. Gets a lot of stress. Okay, so now I back stitched that. I'm gonna stitch across to the other dot. I'm gonna back stitch again for a little extra security, because that is a high stress area. Perfect. Okay, now I'm gonna start stitching around the pocket. This is all at 5/8, so take your time. Take your time. Make it nice and neat. I will be looking at it on the inside because I want to see your seam allowances. Okay, I'm getting to the top. You can sew right off the top of the pocket. Back stitch. Okay, now I'm going to turn it, and now I'm going to sew. So I just sewed all the way around to the top of the pocket. I sewed off and back stitched. You can go around the corner if you wish. Either way, it doesn't matter. Now I'm going to put it back in and sew across the top. 5/8 of an inch. Okay, I'm coming across to meet my other dot. So I just hit my first dot, I hit the second dot, like I just did. I'm going to back stitch here, and now I'm leaving it in the dot. Lift my presser foot, and I'm going to turn the fabric. And as you turn it, it should come out on 5/8 of an inch. Let's see. Oh, this is bad. I don't know how to use these things. Okay, I think I got it. I don't know if you can see anything, but this is the top. This is my waistband. And now I'm ready to sew up the very last part going up to the waistband. Hopefully you saw something there. I need a videographer because I'm not very good. Okay, going up now. Okay, so, what did I do over here? Okay, so I'm going to show you a failure. You guys see this? This is a failure. I did not look at my seam allowance when I was sewing that, so I'm going to take that out and make a correction there. That was that last little turn I made. Of course, I backstitched it too. More work, but no big deal. So we want this seam allowance over here to be flat and pressing towards the pocket. And I didn't check. Sure didn't. Okay, but now I got it flat. I just released whatever was holding it in place there. And I'm going to put it back under and restitch that again. Always check your seams after you sew, everybody, because You should be able to catch your own mistakes. For sure. Okay. Back stitch. Perfect. Let's turn this. I'm just repairing what I just took out. I don't need to restitch the whole thing. Okay, so this is good now. I will show you. So now you can see before it was like that because I didn't keep my seam allowances going in the same direction. So now we're good. We got it. We got it. Okay. So that's one pant leg there. Back you up a little bit. This is one pant leg now that we have sewn, and we have sewn around the pocket. There's one more thing we need to do, and that is we need to snip across the seam allowance up here at the top of the pocket. So you're going to snip into the seam allowance right up to your stitching line. I'll show you what I just did. Okay, so here's your pocket, here's your side seam, this is your waist line. I snipped right here, right? The reason I did that is because I want to be able to press this seam open, because this is my waistband and I need this to be open. So that's what we did here. So pocket, right at the top of your pocket, snip into your seam allowance. Do not snip the stitching line that's going up here in your waistline, because that's not good. That's all you got to do. Then we're going to press this open, and you can press your leg open all the way down. You want to press it open. You can snip into the seam at the bottom of the pocket too. See where I am here? Do the same thing you just did at the top. That way you can press that seam open beautifully. So let me show you. So there's that. And there's where I snipped in so that I can press this seam open. Okay? So the seams where the pockets go always stay pressed. Both ends of the seam allowance are pressed in the direction of the pocket. So this way. Above and below the pocket gets snipped and pressed open. And then down here, this whole leg seam now is going to get pressed open. And then we're good. So go ahead and do that. You're going to repeat this whole thing for the other pant leg. I don't need to show it to you. You can always back your video up and watch it if you need to. And that's the end of the video for today. Most likely tomorrow I'm going to upload another video which shows you how to do your waistband and how to finish the hem of your pants. Hopefully, I know all of you have not, but you need to come in and get elastic for your waistband. You text me please or email me and tell me what time you can come by. I have the elastic sitting on the table. You simply need to wrap the elastic around your body where you're going to wear your pants, whether it's your natural waist, somewhere on your hip, and you need to make that elastic snug how it should feel when you wear it. You don't want your pants to fall down, so you don't want it too loose. Of course, you don't want it too tight, but you find where you're most happy with your elastic, and then you need to cut the elastic and take it home with you, and then we'll put it in as your waistband. Make sure when you put your elastic on that you allow both ends of the elastic to overlap, because we have to sew them together. So make sure you have enough so that the elastic can overlap. Probably no more than an inch. They don't need to be overlapping that much. A ½ inch is plenty as well. So just make sure you give yourself enough elastic you can overlap. Okay, gang. I will see you soon. Have a good night.